School improvement is a complex endeavor because you're dealing with lots of human beings, from the kids to the teachers to the leaders in the school. So the first recommendation I have for anybody engaging in this cycle is, number one, understand your data. I've mentioned student-teacher relations. I've mentioned, or there's you get information on student motivation, self-efficacy. You get information on performance. You get information on the distribution of children across a 6-point rubric. You have a variety of information, and now it's for you to identify, at least what we believe is identify the leverage points that make sense for your school community. For example, I mentioned that we had several schools focus on student-teacher relations. They chose that because they knew it was important, and it also fit into their culture, their community, and an area that they wanted to focus on anyway. It really kind of reinforced an improvement factor for them. So the first step in that process is understand your data. You can't do it all at once. Identify your areas that you believe, or single areas that you believe are the major areas of focus, and then you develop an implementation plan or an action plan to address that. You've got to ensure you include the students in that, your teachers, all of your teachers engaged in that, your instructional leaders, and have everybody aligned with that particular improvement process. Hopefully it's aligned with other things that you may have going on in your school or a district. And if it's not, you've got to make sure that they are, because you don't want things at cross purposes. But those action plans usually then take 1 to 3 years to begin to implement and make changes in your pedagogical approach, or in the case of reading for pleasure for our kids, that took a couple of years. In case of student-teacher relations, you've got to probably dig down deeper into that and develop some protocols for designing high-quality student-teacher interactions that then can ripple out throughout the entire building. And my final piece of advice is, when you include people in your improvement process and your action plan, do the entire building. Don't expect science teachers alone to do this, or English or math. You've got to look at the entire building, because these kids really are engaging with everybody in that faculty and everybody in that school, and even your other professional staff in the building who can support the improvement efforts. What we have done in our action planning or improvement planning is develop a specific plan with a set of responsibilities at various stages of the process. You always will have somebody overarching who's in charge of it all to monitor progress, and so you've got to take some snapshots, if you will, of progress and some key indicators, not just using a summative assessment, but other kinds of indicators along the way. We basically have done a project management approach, and so if you want a formal training process, project management we found to be very encompassing, because you typically will include people in your action planning from across your district, across the content areas, and create a team that is, their focus is on improving this construct, but it's a broad representation of your school with specific responsibilities, monitoring progress in terms of process, monitoring outcomes to make sure that you're on the right track, making adjustments as you go along, and doing that on a very frequent basis, and particularly in the initial stages, meeting weekly and at least monthly when you begin the initial stages of things. But then it's very intentional over, usually, as I mentioned, a couple, maybe 3-year period of time.